Yeah, good morning. Hey now, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us. We are at Wednesday's class. Already it's been great. We looked at the Polish pianist and composer Chopin and his lovely music. And then we looked at your film scoring assignment for A Man and a Woman. And those have come in already. So we're going to look at those on Friday. And that turned out very well, actually. So we're going to coast a little bit through the city and go to kind of a suburb a little bit. It's still a big city in its own right, but we're gonna look at a theater first of all. But before we even look at the theater, we need to talk about where we're gonna go. We can't just be floating in Koreatown or the Hollywood sign. We need a base, right? So let's go from Hollywood to Pasadena. We're gonna talk a little bit about Pasadena today, and Pasadena translates to crown of the valley. That's pretty much what it means, of the valley. And there are a lot of valleys, and that's where the San Gabriel Mountains are. It's beautiful over there. And Pasadena is about 11 miles north of downtown. And if you know that little, it's the Arroyo Seco roadway. It's a freeway, but it's a roadway, which takes you into Pasadena. You've probably been on that kind of little roadway. That's the first freeway in California. 1940. That is the first freeway in Western America. So it's a little dangerous, but it's a little bit fun. So Pasadena is, well, before we get to the Pasadena Playhouse, because that's what we're going to be talking about today, it won't be too much about music, but it's going to be about culture and acting. And this is probably something Diana and David really know about, but I just thought I'd kind of talk about it, because reading about it, I was like, we should know a little bit more about this theater. But let's back up here. Let's not rush here. We need to think about, and this is what I was thinking about last night. We talk a lot about movies, the evolution of movies, how vaudeville and stage, and Sid Grauman last week with the Chinese theater and the Egyptian, and D.W. Griffith making the first feature film for the most part. This is all 1900s to 1920s, right around there. The evolution of editing and film reels, that's all well and good. What's going on with the actors, though? What happens to the stage people? They don't like this. This is turning into, I mean, by the mid 1900s, they don't like it so much where they even start a group around 1912. They started a group, and the period's known as the Little Theater Movement. And this developed in multiple cities, not just Pasadena or LA, throughout the U.S. And it was kind of a cause to maybe save the theater in a sense. But if you think about when movies started coming out in the early 20th century, it was not something anybody wanted to be a part of, especially actors. There was this one book that I read where this guy came from New York and he was desperate for work. And I think they paid him $100 to shoot something just for a day, which is a lot back then. This is the early 1900s. And he was like, yeah, sure, but don't use my name. And he felt like, violated in a sense. I mean, you prostitute yourself to be in movies. This was not a high, now everyone would sell their grandmother out to be in a movie. But this was not something admirable or even something that you would talk about without feeling ashamed or embarrassed, because it was just lowbrow. And you can kind of see it because some of it is just ridiculous. Those early movies are just kind of gags, and it's fun. But I mean, I can see, if you were studying Shakespeare on stage, you'd be like, well, why do I want a frying pan hit on my head? Is that well, little did they know that by the 1915s and the 1920s, it would be glamour and money, and that would be enticing. So it was less taboo then. So that's just a little reference point. So when this little theater group starts, a very important guy comes out of this place and creates this little theater world. So, and he creates it around 1916. And Gilmore Brown is the name. We're going to be talking about Gilmore Brown today. He's a writer-director, and he starts producing plays at this little burlesque theater called the Gilmore Brown Players. And this was established kind of in this community playhouse in Pasadena. in 1917. So this is before it becomes a Pasadena Playhouse. So he starts this little theater in Pasadena, probably where it is now on El Molino. Starts the theater group and gets a lot of funding from East Coast people, and again probably just and from wealthy Pasadenians, and he purchases land at 39 South El Molino. That's where the Playhouse stands today. Let's just say it's still active and well and alive today. So it's going to be a good story ending. And they open it in 1925. So it takes years for him to get, much like Dorothy Chandler we talked about. It took almost 10 years to get that venue, but she started the fundraising. So it's just, things take a lot of time. So by 1925, they have the space finally that they have where they can do this acting little world. 1925, Great Gatsby comes out. That's a huge book that's going to change the world. Hollywood still does a version of Great Gatsby every year, pretty much, but that's what happens. And then 1925, Calvin Coolidge becomes the first president to give his inauguration on the radio. That was huge to hear the president talk on the radio. And then with the movies in 25, you have Ben-Hur, which we've talked about, the old Ben-Hur, and then Lon Chaney with Phantom of the Opera. So those are the movies that are coming out. So they're becoming, at that point, the movies are becoming a little bit better than just little gags. But that's what's going on. One thing that's interesting about the Pasadena Playhouse too, is something very similar to the Egyptian theater, and something, not to brag, but something that only we can do over here is that the Pasadena Playhouse has a beautiful courtyard, just like the Egyptian theater has a beautiful courtyard outside where you can have drinks or have, do whatever you want before the show starts. That's because we have the perfect weather to do it. If you think of, people of course do that in Chicago and New York, but then depending on the weather or what's going on, no one's going to want to hang out outside. So that's also a good selling point for people to see, well, what's the buzz? Why is everyone hanging out in that court? What is, they're waiting to see a play. It's almost a good way of marketing, a selling point. And the Playhouse is so beautiful, designed by Elmer Gray. We've talked about him a little bit. Designed Beverly Hills Hotel, which is gorgeous, Huntington Library, Caltech, many other places, another great LA architect. And it hosted world premieres from people like Eugene O'Neill premiered there. Noel Coward premiered his plays there. F. Scott Fitzgerald, who we talked about, and Tennessee Williams. The most famous playwrights in the world going on would have their works premiered at the Playhouse. And because it was going so well in the 20s, Brown decided to make it into a college there, because there were different stages there, and it was a complete creative workshop for him to work at. So he decided, well, why not create something where people can actually study and it can be accredited in a way that would make it, real legitimate. And a lot of celebrities got their start and were discovered there. Raymond Burr, Victor Mature, Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson, William Holden, even Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman all studied there, got a lot of their education there. It was an amazing program that offered all these, diction, and it was just, and also another thing that was very, very rare. It's one of the first companies in California, at least, to experiment with the theater in the round. They call it theater in the round, which is where the audience is surrounded by the stage, which was kind of revolutionary. That goes back to Rome and all that other stuff, but in California he really wanted that design at his theater, which was, I think, it's really cool. And Brown's audacity was just amazing. Also, one of the reasons that got it so much legitimacy, the Playhouse, was that he was one of the only people, and they were the only venues to do Shakespeare's canon. So that's performing 37 plays. Most of all of Shakespeare's works he had performed there. No other theater in America could claim that the Shakespeare complete canon. So the state legislature voted the Pasadena Playhouse the official state theater of California in 1937. After Brown died in the 60s, it went bankrupt, but the city purchased the building in the 70s, and it went through different stages. But it's great. It's doing really well today. It's a great place to see theater, and it's very cool to know that we have legit. A lot of people put down, I mean, rightly so, that LA doesn't have a theater scene. It's Chicago and New York, and that's true. There's more exciting things happening there. But we do have one of the best stage theaters in the world, really, here, and that's still thriving, from 1925, that has super legitimacy to it, and they put on shows all the time. I've only been once, I think, and that was okay. It wasn't a great show, but I mean, it was. What I do remember is how great the theater was, and beautiful, and walking down, and how well preserved it is. And so we do have one of the best theaters in the world, even though it's not maybe a theater city. It's more of a movie city here, but it's still really cool, and it's in beautiful Pasadena. Take a drive out there. It's not that far out there. It's gorgeous. There's Old Town. There's all these wonderful, the San Gabriel Mountains are beautiful. I sound like a tourist guide, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, love you. This was fun to explore a different part of LA, and see you tomorrow.